Next up, we'll hear from a native from our very own Helsinki. John Lindfors heads Digital Sky Technologies in Hong Kong, investing in category-leading internet and technology companies globally. I think without further ado, I'll give the stage to you since you're up here.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Please
that.
Please give a warm welcome to John Lindfors.
Thank you. Thank you. After that applause, I was about to say that what a fantastic vibrancy and enthusiasm here at Slush, but perhaps accepting that applause, it really is quite a place to be at. 3,000 people. You obviously have the best marketer in the whole world in the form of Peter Westerback, and obviously a fantastic team around him and behind him, and probably more important than him. So it's terrific to be here, an absolute honor, and especially as a native of Helsinki, it looks quite different from when I left this city 20 years ago. My own background is not really that much startup related. I work for DST, Digital Sky Technologies. I'm based in Hong Kong, and we look mainly at late stage internet and technology companies. But we're obviously extremely eager to be part of the community, and we sort of try to do our part in encouraging startups and the growth of companies, and really supporting the best entrepreneurs that we can find on a global basis. So my topic of today, and I think that I'm limited to another 19 minutes, is really to take a step back and look at what are the global opportunities. How does the world look like today? What does it look like if we take a 10-year or a 20-year perspective? And I think that there are some very interesting transformations taking place. And most importantly, I think as a startup, the world has never been more open and more transparent and full of opportunities than it is today. So I think that it's absolutely the right thing to try to go out there and do something with your entrepreneurial talent. The odds may not be for you, but I think that if we have enough people trying, some of you will definitely make it. So let me move on and see if this gadget works. Let me see here. Next. So just a few things about the internet community. Today we're at roughly 2.5 billion people connected online. As you can see from the graph showing from the beginning in 1995, by the way that I noticed that internet was of some sort of importance was actually in 1995. I was first time online in 1988. In 1995, you started seeing references in magazines such as Time and Newsweek to different pages on internet. And since then, we've obviously seen an absolutely amazing growth. I think what is surprising now in hindsight when we're in 2012 was how little there actually was back in 2000 when we had the dot-com hype. We're now at 2.5 billion people online. Our expectation is that we're going to get to 5 billion in the next few years. And obviously, the way that we're going to get there is really people accessing the online community through mobile devices. And I think that it's striking to see that we already have more than 6 billion mobile phones today connected, and more than 1 billion smartphone subscriptions. The other thing which I wanted to mention and highlight to you is that it's not only people connected online, it's just an unbelievable number of devices. You all noticed it in your daily life with mobile phones, very often many different mobile phones, tablets. You have connectivity basically everywhere. We think that this is absolutely going to explode. You know, with this explosion, there's just going to be a lot more opportunities for entrepreneurs and smart companies to basically harness these opportunities and drive this. And by the way, who knows whether it's 20 billion devices by 2020 or 30 billion. I think that it's anybody's guess, really. By the way, this is Cisco's estimate that it will be 20 billion. Now, the great thing for startup entrepreneurs like you is that there's an enormous amount of investment taking place in basically building the infrastructure that we are all benefiting from. So if you look at the total amount of money spent on digital infrastructure on an annual basis, it's somewhere between 3 to 4 billion in the last few years. We're expecting that to increase. Just to put these numbers in perspective, if you compare 20 billion or 20 trillion of investment in digital infrastructure versus total GDP in the world of 70 trillion, it just sort of shows the scale of this enormous investment going into broadband capability, mobile access, and obviously a number of different technologies. And I think that this is the great thing for startups and big companies alike. You really can benefit and thrive off this huge infrastructure investment that is being made. Obviously, we've seen a dramatic reduction in cost of startups also in the last 10 years. And obviously, that's why we have 3,000 people here today versus 1,500 a year ago, and hopefully 6,000 next year. So another topic that is really our favorite topic nowadays, actually out of the $3 billion that we have invested in the last few years, roughly $1.5 billion has been in e-commerce. We think that this is definitely going to completely change the world. You obviously notice it in your own behavior. There are some very, very powerful trends supporting this transformation. Trade is globalizing, increasing urbanization and traffic makes it crazy to actually go to a mall or to a shop to actually get your stuff. Living in Hong Kong and spending a lot of time in mainland China, where you have many cities of 30 million plus inhabitants like Shanghai, Beijing, Chongqing, Guangzhou, etc. You know, it just doesn't make sense to travel by car to go and get different devices, especially if they're somewhat more special. It really makes sense to do it online. And obviously, as you can get absolutely everything from your catalog or from the global catalog, why on earth should you go to a retail establishment to actually get that? And obviously, there are a number of different technologies, and I think that many of you are probably working on some of these to basically make it easier with one-click shopping for consumers, with delivery systems being developed today that will basically enable you to get it within 12 to 24 hours. And by the way, China is actually leader in this particular area. We think that all of these trends are basically causing massive change in how people basically lead their life. Now, obviously, there are huge benefits that will accrue from this, because it's essentially a cheaper way of people accessing goods and services. The vast majority of that benefit, in our opinion, will actually accrue to the consumers. Part of it will obviously go to very successful companies like Amazon and many others. But I think that the chief beneficiary is really the global consumer. Now, I wanted to say a few words about something which was absolutely striking that we saw here a few days ago in China. And this is really sort of a small case study of today. So as you may have heard of, there's something called Cyber Monday. That was a term coined roughly 7 years ago in 2005. And that was American retailers who, after what is called Black Friday, which is the day after Thanksgiving in the US, when typically retail establishments have their biggest sales day offline in the US, and they've had this for a number of different decades. These retailers started noticing that the day after Black Friday, at the end of November, when people basically got to their office after the Thanksgiving weekend, that's when they saw this dramatic spike in e-commerce. So people had been shopping, desperately shopping, you know, good prices, but impossible to actually get what you want. You go into Walmart or any other retail establishment, and there are thousands of people, if not tens of thousands of people in a big mall. People got very frustrated, so on Monday they come back to the office or stay at home, and they basically go and shop what they actually wanted to get but couldn't get over the weekend. So in the US, what happened last year, and by the way, this day is actually coming up in 4 days' time. It's next Monday, so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens next Monday in the US. Last year in the US, there was roughly $1.5 billion of purchases made on that single day. $1.5 billion. This obviously includes all the different e-commerce companies in the US, from Amazon to eBay and number of others. In China, they started basically promoting a similar type of day a few days ago. It's called Singles Day, 1111, so the 11th of November. And we've seen this dramatic explosion there. But this day, which took place 10 days ago in China, just on one company's platform, Alibaba's Taobao Group and Tmall, generated $3 billion. So $3 billion on just one company's platform in China, compared to 1.5 billion for every single e-commerce company in the US. So it just shows and evidences the enormous difference that e-commerce is having in some markets outside of the developed world. So a few other sort of interesting things. Sales in US for Cyber Monday was up 22% last year. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next Monday. In China, it was up 4-fold when we had this day 10 days ago. In the first minute, and by the way, all of these websites, they basically start discounting these things exactly at midnight on 11/11. In the first minute, you had 10 million visitors just on Alibaba Group's platforms. So, you know, there are few shops in the world, as far as I understand, that could take into their doors 10 million people in 1 minute. And that's really what Alibaba enabled them to do. Just another thing to put this in perspective, if you annualize Cyber Monday's sales in the US versus China, and basically multiply it by 365, which obviously, you know, there's limitations to what you can really infer from that. But in the US, it basically equates to online penetration of around 17%. And today, I think that it's around 6% overall on an annual basis. But on that day, it equated to 17%. In China, it equated to 60%. So obviously, what we're seeing in the developing world is that if you have very successful companies that offer a huge catalog, that offer great prices, and that can organize delivery within a short period of time. And by the way, most of those goods were delivered within 24 hours on Cyber Monday. Then you can have this rapid explosion of people. And actually, for Cyber Monday, you had 900,000 delivery men working to deliver goods that were bought on that day. So the numbers are obviously absolutely mind-boggling. And what I think is interesting is that the developing world, rather than developed world, is actually taking the lead in a certain respect. They don't have a mall infrastructure that has been built out in the US and in Europe over the last 50, 60, 70 years since the Second World War. You know, they don't have a high street retail network that has been built out in Europe probably over the last 150 years. In China, you have basically 4 generations that we've seen in Finland that go from an agrarian peasant society 100 years ago to, you know, a society which is online. This whole transformation has taken place within 25 to 30 years in China. So, you know, obviously the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure hasn't had time to be built out. I don't think that it ever will be built out, because you actually have the opportunity to do all of this online. I think that it also opens up a number of other interesting things. You see it in your daily life. I don't use a desktop much anymore. I think that my internet usage is probably 80% mobile versus 20% desktop. I think that the desktop basically is doomed to oblivion in the next 5 to 10 years, and it may be even quicker than that. That means that a lot of businesses need to reconfigure their business model. By the way, Facebook is a great example of a company that was actually almost taken unawares of what it meant for their monetization. For e-commerce, I think that it's going to be a boon, because I think that people will be able to use downtime to basically be more efficient. They can do their groceries, they can do whatever they want from a shopping perspective online anywhere. So I think that the combination of increasing online penetration, a boom in mobile devices, and I think that in particular for those mobile devices to be connected with very fast broadband is really transforming the world in many extent. So if I may be so bold as to venture some guesses as to what will actually happen globally, let's turn to the next page. This shows the total e-commerce volume on a global basis. And by the way, you see the nice rounded numbers. You know, no one knows for sure. So these are really estimates from a few research houses. So obviously, 20 years ago, there was zero. You know, no one bought anything online. Even 2001, I remember for Christmas and Thanksgiving in 2000, when I lived in the US, there was an enormous amount of hoopla and enthusiasm around companies like eToys, etc. By the way, none of them could actually deliver the goods after a month, so people sort of got tired to the first wave of e-commerce. But we only talked about 50 billion of e-commerce, and by the way, I think that probably 80% of that, if not more, was just in the US. And what we've seen is a slow but steadily increasing share of e-commerce out of total commerce. So today, we estimate that around 700 billion of e-commerce was generated in 2011. That's roughly 6% of total global retail, excluding some goods that actually can't get purchased online, like petrol for your car. We expect, actually this is a JP Morgan figure, JP Morgan expects that in 2020, this will grow to $2.5 trillion US dollars, which is around 20% of global retail sales. And we are as bold as to forecast that this is actually going to go up to 50% by 2030. So I think that as you think about your own businesses out there, regardless of whether you have your startup in Moscow or Stockholm or Helsinki or Riga, Tallinn, etc., I think that you really should think about how do you harness this potential. The infrastructure is there. And what you really need to figure out is how can I actually reach those consumers? How can I get into their wallets? How can I take out my small slice out of that wallet? Ideally, a larger slice, but let's start with a small slice. So I think that the world looks extremely exciting from our vantage point. And I hope that you as budding entrepreneurs will be successful in this brave new world that we're all hurtling towards. So I think that with that brief summary, I just want to thank you for taking time to listening to me and just congratulate everyone for coming here today. It's terrific to see you all here. Thank you very much.